In the quiet, well-ordered expanse of suburban neighborhood, where daily life unfolded with predictable rhythm of school buses, yard work, and friendly waves, a mother's profound concern began to quietly take root. Her son, a 12-year-old boy who had once radiated an easygoing energy and an infectious curiosity, was undergoing a subtle yet increasingly disturbing transformation. What began as a fleeting moment of introspection had gradually deepened into a pervasive withdrawal. He started spending an inordinate amount of time in his room, the door often closed, his once lively chatter replaced by extended periods of unsettling silence. His usual enthusiasm for activities he once genuinely enjoyed, like playing boisterously with neighborhood friends, engaging in video games, or pursuing his favorite hobbies, seemed to visibly wane, replaced by a noticeable disinterest that bordered on apathy. He would often decline invitations, preferring solitary confinement within the four walls of his bedroom, leaving his mother to wonder about the sudden shift in his social inclinations. Alongside this increasing reclusiveness, Sarah observed a developing, almost crippling anxiety in her son. Small, everyday events that he would have once shrugged off with youthful indifference now seemed to cause him disproportionate distress. A simple request to complete a chore could be met with a startled reaction, his gaze often darting nervously around the room, as if searching for an unseen threat. He developed an unsettling habit of picking incessantly at his fingernails, or fidgeting constantly when idle, his hands rarely still. These physical manifestations of unease were not typical for his age or his usual sunny temperament, creating a persistent, gnawing unease in his mother's heart. The boy who once navigated his world with the boundless confidence of childhood now moved with a palpable sense of apprehension, his shoulders often hunched, as if perpetually braced for an unseen impact. His questions became hesitant, his answers vague, reflecting a mind constantly preoccupied with something beyond the immediate. Further, there were clear and escalating signs of distress that began to emerge, too pronounced to be dismissed as mere growing pains. His sleep became increasingly restless, marked by frequent awakenings in the dead of night, followed by hushed, almost imperceptible movements in his room, or vivid nightmares from which he would sometimes cry out, though he rarely spoke of their content. His appetite, usually robust and reliable, became erratic, with meals sometimes left untouched or eaten with noticeable lack of enthusiasm. He occasionally exhibited an uncharacteristic irritability, lashing out disproportionately at minor frustrations or innocent questions, only to immediately retreat into himself, appearing burdened by an immense, unseen weight. His eyes, once bright, open, and filled with youthful curiosity, now held a guarded quality, a subtle sadness, and sometimes a fleeting look of fear that pierced his mother's heart with agonizing precision. These symptoms were not fleeting occurrences. They were persistent, forming a disturbing pattern that signaled something profoundly amiss beneath the surface of his young life. He seemed perpetually burdened, as if carrying a heavy, terrifying secret that was slowly, silently, consuming him from within. The mother, intimately attuned to the nuances of her child behavior after 12 years of dedicated care, became increasingly certain that something significant and deeply troubling was afflicting him. This was undeniably more than typical preteen moodiness, more than the natural challenges of navigating adolescence. This was a sustained, inexplicable shift that pointed inexorably to an external influence, a problem too large, too overwhelming, and perhaps too terrified for him to articulate or for her to face alone. Her gentle attempts at casual conversation, designed to invite openness, were consistently met with evasiveness, one-word answers, or a blank, uncommunicative stare. The cheerful, curious, and communicative boy she knew and cherished was slowly being eclipsed by a quiet, burdened stranger, a silhouette of his former self. This growing awareness fostered a deep, gnawing worry within her, a silent alarm that escalated with each passing day, transforming her once peaceful suburban home into a place tinged with an unspoken apprehension, a chilling sense that a storm was gathering just beneath the surface of their seemingly ordinary, protected lives, threatening to erupt and reveal a hidden truth. The mother's apprehension, which had silently grown from a quiet worry to a persistent dread, had reached a critical threshold. Her son's increasingly withdrawn demeanor, his palpable anxiety, and the undeniable signs of deep distress were no longer symptoms she could rationalize away. The cheerful, open boy she knew had been replaced by a burdened, evasive stranger, and the silence that filled their home was thick with unspoken anguish. Sarah knew, with a certainty that gnawed her, that this was not a phase. It was a deeply rooted issue, a secret too heavy for a 12-year-old to carry alone. Her maternal instincts screamed for intervention, urging her to penetrate the wall of silence her son had erected around himself. She understood that direct confrontation might only cause him to retreat further. Instead, Sarah embarked on a deliberate and tender approach, designed to create a safe environment for open communication. She began by subtly increasing their one-on-one time, scheduling quiet moments together without the pressure of conversation. They took walks, read books side by side, or simply sat in comfortable silence, allowing the unspoken invitation to hang in the air. She made sure he knew she was always available without judgment, emphasizing her unwavering love and support. She initiated gentle conversations about general topics, gradually steering towards feelings and emotions, without directly asking about his distress. She shared anecdotes about her own childhood challenges, subtly conveying that everyone faces difficulties, and that talking about them can bring relief. She fostered an atmosphere of unconditional acceptance, reiterating that whatever he was struggling with, they would face it together. This sustained, gentle prodding was not forceful. It was a patient, consistent demonstration of empathy and trust, a lifeline extended to a child who seemed to be drowning in an unseen sorrow. After weeks of this patient and persistent effort, a subtle crack finally appeared in her son's defenses. One evening, during a quiet moment, the boy's carefully constructed emotional barrier finally yielded. The silence that had held him captive for so long began to break. After gentle prodding and creating a safe environment for open communication, the words, though initially hesitant and barely audible, began to emerge. His voice was small, choked with a mixture of shame, fear, and immense relief. He spoke of his confusion, his fear, and the profound sense of isolation he had felt. As he continued, the fragments of his story began to coalesce into a coherent, horrifying narrative. The truth, when it finally emerged from his trembling lips, was a brutal, unspeakable revelation. He confessed a horrifying secret. He had been subjected to inappropriate behavior by a trusted family friend. The specific details, delivered in a rush of words and tears, painted a chilling picture of manipulation and violation. The trusted individual, someone who had been a regular presence in their lives, someone who had been welcomed into their home and considered a part of their extended family, had systematically betrayed that trust. This was not a stranger. It was someone known, someone ostensibly safe, making the betrayal all the more insidious and devastating. The nature of the inappropriate behavior was clear, leaving no ambiguity about the gravity of the confession. It was a violation of his body, his innocence, and his sense of security. The revelation struck the mother with a force that defied description. Her world, once rooted in suburban normalcy, shattered into a million pieces. The man she considered a friend, a reliable presence in their children's lives, was exposed as a predator. The realization was physically sickening, a visceral punch to the gut. The devastation was absolute, not just for her son, but for her own understanding of trust, safety, and the people she had allowed into their inner circle. Every interaction with that friend, every laugh shared, every seemingly innocent gesture, was now reevaluated through a terrifying new lens, colored by the unspeakable act he had committed. The shock quickly transitioned into a searing wave of protective fury. Her immediate, overwhelming response was a resolute determination to seek justice. There was no question of silence, no consideration of protecting the perpetrator or preserving the illusion of normalcy. Her sole focus narrowed to one purpose: ensuring that her son's courage in speaking out would lead to accountability for the monstrous act committed against him. The betrayal was too profound, the violation too severe, for any other course of action. In that agonizing moment, the mother's role shifted from gentle comforter to fierce protector, ready to fight for the justice her son so desperately deserved. The quiet suburban home was now the epicenter of a hidden trauma, demanding immediate and decisive action. The agonizing truth of her son's confession had ripped through the mother's world, shattering her perception of safety and trust. The initial shock had hardened into a cold, determined resolve. This monstrous act would not remain hidden, and the perpetrator would face justice. The very thought of the family friend, once welcomed into their home, now filled with a profound sense of revulsion and betrayal. Her immediate, unwavering priority was to protect her son and ensure that no other child would suffer a similar fate. With a clarity born of intense purpose, the mother reached for her phone. This was not a call she had ever imagined making, a conversation she had ever prepared for. Yet, there was no hesitation. She dialed the non-emergency line for local law enforcement, her voice, though strained and taut, remaining steady as she articulated the nightmare she had just uncovered. She spoke with a deliberate precision, relaying her son's confession, identifying the perpetrator, and outlining the nature of the inappropriate behavior. The dispatcher, trained to recognize the gravity of such calls, quickly escalated the situation. Within minutes, 2 detectives, specialists in cases involving children, arrived at her suburban home. Their demeanor was professional, empathetic, and reassuring, providing a much-needed sense of calm in the midst of her personal storm. The process of reporting the abuse began with a careful and sensitive interview. The detectives listened intently as the mother recounted her son's confession, noting every detail, every nuance of her account. They explained the subsequent steps with a calm, reassuring tone, emphasizing the importance of protecting the child and ensuring a thorough investigation. A crucial and delicate part of the process involved interviewing the child. This was handled with the utmost care, conducted by a specially trained forensic interviewer in a child-friendly environment, often away from the police station to minimize distress. The goal was to allow the child to recount his experience in his own words, at his own pace, without leading questions or undue pressure. This interview was designed to be therapeutic for the child, while also serving as a vital source of information for the investigation. Every detail he provided, every memory he shared, was meticulously documented, forming the cornerstone of the emerging case. The child's courage in speaking out, even in the face of such deep trauma, was paramount. As the child's account was carefully gathered, detectives began the systematic process of collecting evidence to corroborate his account. This involved multiple avenues of investigation, extending beyond the victim's testimony. They initiated background checks on the identified family friend, looking for any previous complaints, suspicious activities, or patterns of behavior that might align with the accusations. Digital forensics teams were mobilized, preparing to seek warrants for the suspect's electronic devices, computers, phones, tablets, anticipating potential presence of incriminating communications, images, or other digital footprints that could substantiate the allegations. They also began to subtly gather information from individuals within the suspect's social circle, seeking any subtle indicators of a hidden life, any previous anomalies that might have been dismissed as insignificant at the time but now held new meaning. This initial evidence gathering was crucial for building a strong foundation for the case, ensuring that the victim's brave confession was supported by objective proof. The ongoing investigation quickly led to the identification of the family friend as the primary suspect. His name, which had been a trusted part of their family lexicon, was now synonymous with unspeakable horror. The detectives meticulously cross-referenced the child's account with preliminary findings from their background checks and initial inquiries. The suspect established a relationship with the family, the opportunities he had for access, and a lack of any alternative explanation for the child's distress all pointed directly to him. His seemingly innocuous presence in their lives transformed into a chilling veneer designed to conceal a predator's true nature. The revelation that the perpetrator was someone so intimately known, someone who had been welcomed into their home and cherished within their trusted circle, added another layer of profound distress to the mother's already heavy burden. This was not the work of a stranger lurking in the shadows. It was a devastating betrayal from within, making the road to justice simultaneously more urgent and more heartbreaking. The wheels of the justice system had begun to turn, propelled by a child's courage and a mother's unyielding resolve to protect her son. The initial report to law enforcement had set in motion a meticulous and highly specialized investigation. The detectives assigned to the case, well versed in the complexities of child abuse cases, approached the situation with a dual focus: ensuring the child's safety and well-being, and systematically gathering the undeniable evidence needed to hold the perpetrator accountable. The mother, having taken the agonizing but necessary step of reporting the abuse, now found herself navigating the intricate and often emotionally challenging landscape of criminal investigation. Her son's brave confession had cracked open a hidden world, and the police were now tasked with illuminating every dark corner. The initial interview with the child, conducted by a specially trained forensic interviewer, had provided crucial details and corroborated the mother's account. This interview was a delicate balance of empathy and information gathering, ensuring the child felt supported while yielding accurate and usable testimony. Following this, the focus of the investigation broadened considerably. Authorities initiated a comprehensive and multifaceted investigation into the family friend now identified as the primary suspect. This was not merely about confirming the single accusation. It was about building an airtight case and, critically, determining if there were other victims. The first phase involved an extensive background check on the suspect. Detectives delved into his history, scrutinized his employment records, residential history, and any prior interactions with law enforcement, however minor. They looked for patterns, any past accusations, even if unproven, any unusual behavior reported by former colleagues or neighbors, or any unexplained periods of financial distress or sudden changes in lifestyle. Concurrently, a crucial element of the investigation involved securing and executing search warrants for the suspect's electronic devices. This included computers, laptops, tablets, smartphones, and any external storage devices. These devices were seized and transported to a specialized digital forensics lab. Here, highly skilled forensic analysts began the painstaking work of extracting data. This process involved not just retrieving existing files, but also recovering deleted communications, browse histories, hidden files, and any digital footprints that could reveal illicit online activities or hidden correspondence. They searched for patterns of online behavior, encrypted communications, and any evidence of involvement in clandestine online communities. The expectation was that a predator operating with such insidious intent would likely leave a digital trail. As the digital forensics analysis progressed, a horrifying and undeniable picture began to emerge. The devices yielded a vast quantity of incriminating evidence. Beyond the immediate corroboration of the victim's account, analysts began to uncover a clear pattern of predatory behavior by the suspect. This included not only evidence directly related to the reported abuse, but also, more chillingly, indications of previous similar activities. There were encrypted chat logs revealing disturbing conversations with other individuals discussing illicit interests, shared resources, and strategies for avoiding detection. Browse histories pointed to visits to dark web forums and websites dedicated to child exploitation. This evidence transformed the understanding of the suspect from an individual who had committed a singular heinous act into a systemic predator, operating with calculated intent. The most disturbing aspect of the unfolding investigation was the discovery of other potential victims. Digital communications revealed instances where the suspect had engaged in manipulative conversations with other children online, often under pseudonyms, building trust and attempting to groom them. There were also indications of contact with other families, where the suspect had potentially sought opportunities for access to children through seemingly innocuous means, such as offering tutoring services, volunteering for youth organizations, or simply cultivating friendships with parents. These findings triggered a crucial expansion of the investigation, as law enforcement agencies worked to identify and, where possible, reach out to these potential victims or their families, a delicate process requiring immense sensitivity and care. This discovery underscored the widespread danger posed by the suspect, revealing a much larger scope of harm than initially conceived. The combined weight of the victim's courageous testimony, the meticulous digital forensic analysis, and the emerging pattern of predatory behavior strengthened the case against and beyond any reasonable doubt. The evidence gathered was not merely circumstantial. It was direct, multi-layered, and scientifically robust. Each piece of information, from recovered chat logs to traced online activities and victim corroborations, contributed to an unassailable indictment. The investigative team, now with an overwhelming body of proof, moved to secure an arrest warrant. The family friend, who had for years walked freely among them, living a life of deceit, was now definitively identified as a dangerous, systemic perpetrator of child abuse. The pursuit of justice, driven by an absolute commitment to protecting children, had reached its next critical phase, the apprehension of the individual responsible for unspeakable harm. With the weight of overwhelming evidence, Meticulously gathered by the tireless efforts of investigators and forensic specialists, the legal machinery moved decisively. The pattern of predatory behavior, the digital footprints, and the courage of the young victim's testimony had converged into an undeniable case against a family friend. The individual, once a seemingly innocuous presence in the community, was formally arrested and subsequently charged with multiple counts related to child exploitation and abuse. These charges were not merely singular accusations. They encompass a full spectrum of his discovered depravity, ranging from possession of illicit materials to engaging in grooming behaviors and, potentially, direct acts of abuse. Each charge represented a profound violation of trust and innocence, demanding the fullest extent of justice. The path to trial was a long and arduous one, marked by numerous pre-trial hearings, motions, and procedural complexities. The prosecution, acutely aware of the sensitivity and gravity of cases involving child victims, meticulously prepared their strategy. They understood that securing a conviction would require not only presenting the compelling evidence, but also ensuring the victims and their families were supported throughout the harrowing process. The defense, meanwhile, attempted to challenge the evidence, questioning the chain of custody for digital artifacts, attempting to cast doubt on the forensic analysis, and seeking to undermine the credibility of the witnesses. However, the robust nature of the investigation and the unwavering dedication of the prosecution team proved a formidable opposition. The trial itself became the focal point where the dark secrets of the perpetrator were finally brought into the harsh, unforgiving light of public scrutiny. The courtroom was filled with an atmosphere of profound seriousness, with seats often occupied by concerned community members, victim advocates, and journalists documenting every detail of the proceedings. The prosecution systematically laid out their case, beginning with opening statements that outlined the comprehensive nature of the charges and the evidence they intended to present. A critical and often emotionally challenging component of the trial involved the testimonies from the victims. The initial victim, the 12-year-old boy whose courageous confession had initiated the entire investigation, was among those who testified. This testimony was handled with extreme care, often utilizing specialized procedures to protect the child, such as testifying via closed-circuit television or with support persons present. His words, delivered with a quiet strength that belied his young age, recounted the betrayal of trust and the inappropriate actions he had endured. His account was direct, consistent, and deeply impactful, serving as a powerful testament to the truth of his experience. As the investigation had unfolded, leading to the identification of other potential victims, some of these brave individuals also came forward to share their own experiences. Their testimonies, each echoing a chilling pattern of predatory behavior, collectively painted an irrefutable picture of the defendant as a serial abuser. These combined victim testimonies, while harrowing to hear, formed the emotional and factual core of the prosecution's case, providing the human face to the charges. Beyond the victim testimonies, the prosecution presented an array of expert witnesses whose contributions were crucial in securing a conviction. Digital forensic experts took the stand, calmly and precisely detailing the intricate process of extracting and analyzing the vast quantities of data from the perpetrator's electronic devices. They explained how deleted files were recovered, how encrypted communications were decrypted, and how specific online activities linked the defendant to illicit networks and grooming behaviors. Their technical explanations, supported by visual aids and irrefutable data, provided the scientific bedrock for the case, demonstrating the perpetrator's calculated and pervasive engagement in child exploitation. Child psychologists and trauma specialists also testified, offering expert opinions on the behavioral patterns of child predators, the psychological impact of abuse on victims, and the common dynamics of grooming. Their insights helped the jury understand the nuanced complexities of such cases, dispelling common misconceptions and validating the victim's experiences. Law enforcement investigators provided testimony on the methods used to identify the defendant, the process of his arrest, and the evidence collected from his residence. The defense, despite their efforts to sow doubt, struggled against the overwhelming tide of evidence. They attempted to discredit the victim's accounts, suggesting inconsistencies or external influences. They challenged the forensic methodology, asserting technical errors or bias. However, the meticulous planning of the prosecution, the thoroughness of the investigation, and the sheer volume of corroborating evidence proved insurmountable. The jury, after listening intently to weeks of testimony and reviewing countless pieces of evidence, retired for deliberation. Their verdict was swift and unambiguous. They returned a unanimous finding of guilty on all or most of the multiple counts related to child exploitation and abuse. The conviction was a clear, unequivocal affirmation of the heinous crimes committed by the perpetrator. In the subsequent sentencing phase, the court heard arguments from both sides regarding the appropriate punishment. The prosecution emphasized the severe nature of the crimes, the profound and lasting trauma inflicted upon innocent children, the premeditated and systemic pattern of the defendant's predatory behavior, and the need for a sentence that reflected both punishment and deterrence. The judge, having presided over the meticulous presentation of evidence and heard the courageous testimonies of the victims, delivered a sentence that reflected the gravity of the offenses. The perpetrator, the family friend who had betrayed the trust of an entire community, was sentenced to a lengthy prison term, effectively ensuring that he would spend a significant portion, if not the remainder, of his life incarcerated. This sentencing brought a tangible measure of justice to the victims and their families, signifying that the legal system had upheld its duty to protect the most vulnerable and to hold accountable those who inflict unimaginable harm. The resolution of this harrowing legal journey marked a critical step towards closure, allowing the victims and their families to begin the arduous yet hopeful path towards healing. The final strike of the judge's gavel, echoing to the solemn courtroom, reverberated not as a definitive end for Sarah and her children, but as a crucial, undeniable beginning. Mark's conviction and the lengthy prison sentence, while representing a monumental step toward justice, did not and could not instantly erase the profound trauma that had been inflicted upon their lives. Instead, this judicial resolution merely signaled the official close of a horrifying chapter, marking the arduous commencement of another, the deeply challenging process of rebuilding their lives amidst the emotional wreckage of betrayal and the shattering of trust. The home they inhabited, once a symbol of domestic peace and familial warmth, was now irrevocably tainted by the chilling revelation of a monstrous, hidden secret. This space required more than just a physical cleaning. It demanded a deep, painstaking emotional and psychological cleansing. Sarah's immediate and unwavering focus became the creation of a stable, fundamentally safe environment for her children, one that could counteract the immense instability and fear they had experienced. This was a multifaceted endeavor, involving not just practical adjustments to their daily routines, but also profound, sustained commitment to emotional reconstruction. Routines were painstakingly reestablished, meticulously designed to offer a sense of predictability, consistency, and security that had been violently stripped away. She made conscious, deliberate efforts to fill their days with wholesome activities, to reintroduce moments of genuine joy, to help them reclaim the innocence that had been so brutally threatened, and to subtly remind them of the fundamental goodness that still existed in the world, despite the profound darkness they had encountered. The emotional toll of living with such a profound, insidious betrayal, compounded by the harsh glare of public exposure, was immense, almost incapacitating. Sarah understood, with chilling clarity, that neither she nor her children possessed the innate tools to navigate this complex, treacherous emotional landscape alone. She proactively and without hesitation sought therapy for herself and her kids. For Sarah, individual therapy became a crucial, confidential sanctuary, a safe, empathetic space where she could begin to process the unimaginable grief of having lost a man she believed she knew, the agonizing, pervasive guilt of not having seen the insidious signs sooner, and the immense, crushing burden of navigating such a public and deeply personal tragedy. It allowed her to meticulously unravel the complex, tangled threads of betrayal, to confront the raw pain, and to slowly, painstakingly begin to mend emotional wounds that ran so deep within her psyche. For her children, specialized child psychologists offered age-appropriate support, employing therapeutic play and gentle conversation to help them to understand, in a compassionate and protected manner, the incomprehensible actions of their father. Therapy became an invaluable lifeline, a place where their confusion, their burgeoning anger, and their overwhelming fear could be expressed, validated, and processed, providing them with essential coping mechanisms to navigate the traumatic reality that had been so cruelly forced upon them. It was a long, often painful process, marked by setbacks and breakthroughs, but was an absolutely essential investment in their collective healing and future well-being. The community, Initially reeling from the initial shock of the arrest and the subsequent deluge of public scrutiny, slowly, yet perceptibly, began to extend a compassionate and unwavering hand of support. While there were inevitably initial moments of awkwardness, hushed whispers, and uncertain glances, the prevailing sentiment shifted decisively towards offering profound support to Sarah and her children. Neighbors, many of whom had known the family for years, began quietly bringing nutritious meals, offering invaluable childcare, or simply sitting with Sarah, offering a silent, reassuring presence of solidarity and understanding. Local community organizations, shocked by the revelation, swiftly rallied their resources, providing financial assistance where needed, connecting Sarah with support networks, and offering various forms of practical help. This overwhelming outpouring of genuine concern, empathy, and tangible assistance served as a vital lifeline, reminding Sarah and her children that they were not, and would never be, alone in their ordeal. This collective embrace became a powerful testament to the resilience of human connection, demonstrating that even in the face of unspeakable darkness, the innate human capacity for kindness and communal support could shine through, providing a crucial counterpoint to the isolated horror they had endured. As time progressed, and the initial, acute rawness of the trauma began its slow process of subsiding, Sarah, forged in the crucible of adversity, found a profound, renewed sense of purpose that transcended her own personal healing journey. She made a conscious, courageous choice to transform her immense pain into a powerful, catalytic force for positive change. She became an eloquent and passionate advocate for child protection, leveraging her own harrowing, deeply personal experience to raise widespread awareness and educate countless others. She began sharing her story, not for sensationalism or personal gain, but as a sober, compelling cautionary tale. She spoke at community events, addressing concerned parents in school auditoriums, participating in local forums, and eventually speaking at regional and even national conferences. In her public appearances, she detailed the subtle, almost imperceptible red flags she had initially missed, explaining the insidious, manipulative nature of online grooming, and articulating the devastating, long-lasting impact of child exploitation on victims and their families. Her voice, once hushed by personal shame and private torment, now resonated with unwavering clarity, authority, and an undeniable authenticity, empowered by the hard-won wisdom of experience. Her message was not about instilling pervasive fear, but about empowering parents, educators, and communities with essential knowledge, encouraging proactive measures, and fostering environments where children felt genuinely safe and supported to disclose any uncomfortable or inappropriate interactions they might encounter.
Thank you for watching. Like, share, and subscribe for more.